We doing everything they talk about. You know I'm everything a boss about. Not putting work and gotta toss them out. I'm really biting, they just barking out. I'm really riding, they just talking now. His street, what to talk about. See the big H when I'm walking out. Yeah.
Here we go. Back in the undisclosed location. But I'm here. Let's talk some college football. Welcome to the Athletes Forum podcast. I'm your host, Jamal Clay. Shout out to you guys, the locker room, for keep coming back. Throwing the comments in. I see you guys, Miami fans, Colorado fans. It's been fun chopping it up. Let's keep this thing going. We got some Miami and Colorado talk that we're about to go through. So let's chop it up. All right, we're going to reflect. We're going to react to week 11, and let's not waste any time. But again, first, subscribe, drop a comment, like a video. This is an interactive podcast. You guys are part of this. So let's talk it out. First game we're going to go to, that 12 o'clock slate in Atlanta, Georgia. You know, last week I said Miami is going to lose at the wrong time. I didn't think it would be the following week. I didn't think they would catch an L the following week. They went to Georgia Tech and lost. By the way, they also lost to Georgia Tech last year, so those are back-to-back losses to Georgia Tech. I'm not an I told you so guy, but kind of let's talk about it, because at the end of the day, is it better now than later? Right? That's the question we're going to ask. Is it better now than later for Miami? Miami went to Atlanta, played up against a banged-up Georgia Tech team. Quarterback Hayes King was banged up. Didn't even know if he was going to play. They didn't really play. They played old school football against Miami, right? And at this rate, like, you know, you got to be concerned if Miami can win these types of games, because they didn't really do anything, you know, out of the ordinary, right? Georgia Tech, they were definitely more physical. They barely even had 100 yards passing. They ran the ball for 271. That was a key difference in that game. Miami couldn't stop the run for nothing. Again, Hayes King was passed up, was banged up. I know he had one good touchdown to Chase Lane in the end zone. And ultimately, we saw a Miami team where their offense couldn't get it done. Defense played what we expected, gave us some points. Didn't really affect the game that much, but Miami's offense just really couldn't get it going. I know they had 3 fourth down attempts, big stops by Georgia Tech. Cam Ward wasn't the greatest, but he still threw for over 300 plus 3 touchdowns. And obviously we all know the fumble that happened at the end. But at the end of the day, Georgia Tech, they won the time and possession. They ran the ball. They stopped the run. That's old school ball right there. That's old school ball. So we'll see where Miami comes from this. I thought it was going to be later in the season, ACC championship game, maybe playoffs. But again, better now than never for Miami, right? Because now you get to learn from this, right? You get to see, you know, what an L tastes like, what it feels like before heading into bigger games that you're going to have later in the season. So my question to the locker room is, again, drop a comment. You know, this type of loss, will it benefit Miami going down the stretch? All right. Obviously, we assume they're all going to make the playoffs. Well, this type of loss to a Georgia Tech team that basically runs the state of Florida, they beat Florida State week 0 in Ireland. Well, and they beat Miami this past week, 28-23. Does this type of loss make Miami even better than what they would have been if they would have lost early in the season? Right? So, locker room, drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think. All right. Next game we're going to dive into here. Damn. I tried to tell people Georgia was some frauds. They almost lost last week to my Florida Gators with a third-string quarterback, Adrian Warner. They went to Ole Miss, banged up Jackson Dart in the beginning. He came back, and Jackson Dart played well enough to actually win the game. But they won this game on defense. This wasn't an Ole Miss type of shootout type of game. Ole Miss won this game on defense. And you know, when you think about it, in the quarterback battle, Jackson Dart played well. Another not so impressive game by Carson Beck, right? Threw an interception. What else? He threw for 186. Offense was held to 59 rushing yards. Georgia's been struggling to run the ball all season. Georgia has not been able to run the ball like they used to or like they want to all season. When you're only running the ball for 59 yards versus Ole Miss, you have a problem. Ole Miss, welcome back to the playoff conversation because now you're back in it. Obviously, you have 2 losses in conference. You lost to Kentucky and you lost to LSU. But this one is huge. This one is huge, especially seeing what happened with LSU this weekend. We'll dive into that game as well. But Ole Miss, you're back in playoff talks, right? Because Georgia's not as good as we think they are. Actually, my question for the locker room is for Georgia fans. How do you feel right now? Do you feel like this team is still capable to be a national championship? Do you feel like this team is capable of playing an Oregon or an Ohio State who are better than you guys? Right? You beat Texas, great, but Oregon and Ohio State are the top 2 tiers right now, and they're better than you. You got Tennessee next week. All right. You lose to Tennessee, it's over. You can still make the playoffs right now with 2 losses. It sucks Bama is ahead of you right now because they got the head-to-head. But you lose to Tennessee, it's over. It's over. So my question to Georgia fans in the locker room, drop a comment. Do you feel comfortable that this Georgia team is going to get it fixed and, do what they have to do to be a national chip contender? We shall see. We shall see. Let's go into the next game. This one was a good one. This one was a good one. Colorado, Texas Tech. Colorado fans, it's been fun chopping it up with you guys all week. Don't stop. Drop comments. Let me know what you guys think, and let's talk it out. I thought this game was the biggest game in Colorado history within the primetime era. Obviously, I know you guys won a national championship. All right. I know there was maybe some other big games. This game was huge because this was the best team left on your schedule. Obviously, you don't want to slip up versus Utah, versus Kansas, versus Oklahoma State. But this team I think, is better than those teams. This team beat the team you were trying to get ahead of, Iowa State, right? So that's why I thought this game was one of the most important games and the biggest game that they needed. And it didn't start off great. It was chippy in the beginning, but it didn't start off great. It was a little scary at first. All right. Texas Tech started off great. I think they went up 13-0. The biggest adjustments, and they said it in the broadcast, was the coaching staff Deion Sanders put together and the adjustments that they made. And we saw those, right? You saw those. Colorado plays a lot of man coverage. We all know that, right? We all know that. They had to go more zone because Texas Tech was hitting them with the unders routes. And we all remember last year when Colorado State was killing man coverage with the under routes. That's what Texas Tech was doing too. They were killing Colorado with the under routes, right? But they were doing it in a way where it became a screen. So you see, when they had number 1, number 2 come down the line, he was coming behind the line of scrimmage. Therefore, receivers and linemen are allowed to block before catching the ball. And they were using that to their advantage, right? Colorado goes more zone, switches it up, and they let the pass rush eat. They let that pass rush eat. That Colorado defense had 7 sacks. That Colorado D-line had 7 sacks, 11 TFLs, and balled. And they still, I believe that they lead the conference when it comes to sacks as well. Shador played well, started off slow, threw for 291 and 3 touchdowns, ran for 1. He had a real good game. And what's the difference in this Colorado team? I'll tell you what, it's the growth. This team is battle-tested. This team is mature. This team doesn't get down when, times get hard. This team knows how to make adjustments. You see it defensively. They got the right guys up front. They're letting the DBs eat, vice versa. Offensively, O-line is good. They might have the best skill set of receivers in the country. There's not many teams that have 3 or 4 guys that could take a screen to the house. This Colorado team is different, and they played well. They play well. And shout out to all the haters in the beginning of the year saying Carson Beck over Shador, Quinn Ewers over Shador. No disrespect to Quinn. I like Quinn. Carson, I'm not too much of a fan of, right? But that's just from a game perspective. But Shador is balling, man. I mean, even Cam Ward was behind those guys, and Cam Ward is balling, right? So shout out to Colorado. They get a huge win. All right. Here's my question to the locker room for the Colorado fans. Big game versus Utah coming up. We've seen what Coach Prime has put together and his coach staff thus far. How do we feel about Coach Prime being Coach of the Year? He's got an argument, but let me know what you think and drop a comment. Obviously, there's a big game coming up against Utah, different kind of matchup, but Colorado has shown that they could play this type of game. Obviously, UCF, obviously Texas Tech. They've been able to stop the run all year. We know Utah wants to run. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. So we'll see how we'll see how this one pans out. All right. But the last game we want to go to, we all know where we're headed. We all know we're headed to Baton Rouge. Bama dominated. LSU. This was Bama's best overall performance all season. First of all, you go into LSU, who has an 88% win percentage at night, and you go in there and put up that type of performance? That type of performance versus LSU? I mean, Bama, 2 interceptions, 1 forced fumble. One of those forced fumbles led to a TD, 2 sacks. Milton on the ground game had 4 rushing touchdowns. Probably inserted himself back into the Heisman conversation. He played well. This is their best overall performance. Now LSU, that's a bad loss. That's a huge loss. At night, home, Bama, College game day was there. All the alumni. That's a bad loss, LSU, and they're out of playoff contention, right? There's no way a 3-loss SEC team is gonna get into the playoffs. And even if they do, there's still so many more teams ahead of them. Tennessee, Texas A&M, Texas, all 1 loss in conference, right? Tennessee plays Georgia, a chance for one of those teams to get back into the mix, either for Tennessee to extend their lead or Georgia maybe to get back in the conversations, right? You got teams like Missouri, Alabama, Georgia. You a 3-loss SEC team is going to be hard for them to even sniff that conversation. So we'll see. But Bama went to LSU and dominated. Milton 4 TDs on the ground. They play well. Tell you what, this Bama team is different. This win versus LSU is better than their win versus Georgia because of the overall performance, where they were at on the road, everything going up against them. Yeah, this Bama team is real and interesting. Some other things to take a look at from Week 11 to take away. Iowa State loses to Kansas, opens the door for Colorado, right? Indiana first 10-win season. BYU gets a 1-point win over Utah. We already talked about how the SEC is a mess. Man, college football has been great. This season, I said it, is going to be the best season in college football history. I'm excited to keep watching. Week 12, we got some matchers. We got some matchups coming up. We got some bangers coming up. It's going to be exciting to talk about it.